Hi everyone, this is Peace Daddy, and today I am going to be doing a lesson on fractions part 1. This is a series of lessons in this whole unit. I did the introduction in an earlier video. Today is going to be the lesson on nomenclature. Nomenclature is just a fancy word for the name of something. So we're going to be talking about words like halves, thirds, fourths, fifths, all the way up to tenths and even sixteenths. If you're working from home and you've watched some of my other videos, you can always go to a website called www.virtualmontessorimimaterials.com, and everything that I am working with today you will be able to see on that website virtually. Today we're going to be working with the fraction materials, so you would go to the section of that website that is called fraction circles. So first thing that I'm going to do is ask you some questions, and since you're at home and you're not here with me, you can answer the questions out loud if you want to, or you can just answer them in your head, but I want you to be thinking about these questions. So the first one is, what's your name? And what is your, if you have a sister, what's your sister's name? And what's your mother's name? So the point is that we all have different names, but in a family, in most families, we have a name that we share. And the same thing is true in fractions. So fractions names are similar to our own names. There's a name for the family of fractions, and there's a special name for each piece. And the family name for fractions, like I said at the beginning, are thirds, fourths, halves, things like that. So we're going to look at those names first, and I'm going to move the camera down quickly so that you can see my rug and what we are working with here today. So I have my circle frames laid out, and again, you can go to www.virtualmontessorimimaterials.com and you can lay out fraction frames just like this on that website. So let's just start with this frame here. How many parts are in this frame? There are 2 parts in this frame. So the name for this is halves. If you have a 2, you would say that it is halves. And what about the parts in this one? Has 4 parts. So you would put a 4 here on your work. And remember, when you're done watching this video, I want you to go to the website we talked about, and I want you to do what I'm doing. Just repeat what I'm doing and copy it in your copybook. So you're labeling the whole frame. This frame just has 1. So you put a 1 there, it just has 1 piece. And the name of that is called the ones or the units or the wholes. A lot of people will just call this a whole. It's the whole thing. And then what about the last one? How many parts do you see there? Okay, so we see 3 parts on that one. So that one's going to have a 3. And that's called thirds. So how many wholes or ones do we have right there? We have 1 whole. And how many halves do we have here in the whole frame? 1, 2. We have 2 halves. How many thirds do we have? 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 thirds. And then how many fourths do we have? We have 4 fourths. And on my rug right here, I only have room enough for 4 of them, but your goal is to do all 10, all the frames that you will be able to pull down from virtualmontessorimimaterials.com and label them just as I've labeled them. So the family with the 2 parts again is called halves, 3 parts is third, and 4 parts is fourths. And I want you to keep going, thinking about the names that I have put down, and I want you to continue all the way up to tenths and copy the work into your copybook. Now, you could also go, if you are in a Montessori classroom, and you could get the frames that look like this. There are some square frames with little squares, and these go all the way up to 16ths. And you could work with that as well. Each one of these is a 16th. That's 1/16, and they're all together. You have 16 pieces. And there's also some square frames that look like this. This would be 1 whole square. And the 1 whole square could be cut in half. Now look at this one. It's on a diagonal, but there's 2 of them. So these are halves. This is 1 half, 2 halves, 2 halves. So they can look like this, they can look like squares, or they can be circles. So I just wanted to show you that there's some other names for them. All right, so we have seen the family names of fractions. Now we're going to give a name to each piece. Just as all of you have specific names like Madeline or Landon, Ashley, just as you have specific names, the fractions have specific names. So what is this? This is a half. So I give it the family name half, but when I'm talking about just that one piece, that is 1 half. So I would label it like this. 1 half. And what about if I took 2 of these pieces here? What are these called? Those are called thirds. So I would label this 1/3, and I would label this one 1/3. And if I put them together, 1/3 and another third, this would be called 2/3. So I could use, this would be the family name, the thirds, right? And then the individual piece, these 2 pieces together, this one name for this group would be called 2/3. So that's how you identify them. You have to identify the family, and the family name is on the bottom, and then you have to say how many you have. So we have 2 of them. So what I would like for you to do to continue this work is just go along and label everything. So start with the work that's on virtualmontessorimimaterials.com. Start with the whole unit, and then go to the halves and the thirds and progress all the way up through the tenths, labeling them like this. And once you've labeled them on that website, they have a nice rug just like I have. Once you've labeled them there, then I want you to go to your copybook, your black and white composition book, and I want you to copy each of these down. So you would draw a circle in your copybook, and you would say this is 1 whole. You would label it 1 whole. You would draw a circle in your copybook that looks like this with 2 pieces, and underneath it you would say this is 2 halves, and then take out the individual piece and label it as well. And if you're in a Montessori classroom, of course you could just draw it. You could take a pencil and trace around it, and you could say this shape, and then next to it you would write equals, and then you could say 1 half. like that. But if you're not in a classroom, if you're working virtually, then you can freehand it. You just take a circle and you draw the whole circle. It would actually look more like this, right? You draw the whole circle, and then you would just label this one 1/2 in your notebook like that. That's 1/2 that I'm drawing in my notebook. And you would do the same for each one. This one, you would label it as 1/3. So you would put 1/3 on there. And then you would label 2/3. And so on and so forth, all the way up to the tenths. And once that labeling work is done, you are ready for the next lesson. So that was part 1 of fractions, part of that unit. And the name of this lesson has been Nomenclature. We've learned about halves, thirds, what those look like, and how to write them. And as always, I want to say thank you for joining me. This has been Peace Daddy. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.